Guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new entitled people content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first story is titled, Greedy HOA Sues Farmer and Destroys His Life, They Get Completely Destroyed. You know a story about an HOA is going to be good when I start off by telling you that I'm not part of an HOA. I am not even in the town lines to be part of the HOA if I wanted to. Actually, there never used to be one until a small community opened up in the area near my farm. It was filled with Karens and male Karens that thought since they had money it made them better than everyone else. They were the snobbiest people I have ever seen in my life and had, subtly, told me several times that my farm didn't really seem to fit with the atmosphere they were trying to convey. To them I was a dirty redneck that drove a truck and wore denim overalls every day. Now I didn't care what they had to say about me since their opinions were worth less than a pile of manure. What did enrage he was that they decided they were going to sue me. Their excuse was even though I was found out of the HOA, the noise from my tractor traveled within it and broke several noise rules. Again, rules that I didn't have to follow because I didn't live in that neighborhood. Besides, I could hear louder drunken parties and kids blasting music than anything I did on my farm. They just wanted an excuse to get rid of me. They knew they couldn't actually win, but that was part of their plan. They wanted to just make me spend so much money defending myself that I couldn't afford to even keep my farm anymore. It was a smart plan except for one tiny detail. I actually had more money than anybody living in that HOA neighborhood. I had a large trust fund and spent some of my younger years working hard and investing. The farm doesn't actually make me much profit, it just makes me happy. As for my truck and overalls, they make me feel better than a fancy car and a suit could any day of the week. They didn't know this though, and I hired my lawyer to make sure that I was going to get the best defense possible. Many times, the HOA lawyer suggested to my lawyer that he should make me quit the lawsuit because after they were done I wouldn't even have money to pay him. My lawyer obviously didn't tell them shit about my money. Winning the lawsuit wasn't good enough for me anymore and I wanted to get revenge on these people. They were hiding behind the HOA and a stupid lawsuit because the Karens were too scared to even try to talk to me themselves. So just beating them and being able to keep my farm wasn't going to be enough, and instead I wanted to find the people that were responsible and destroy them. I knew that even if everyone in there was a snob, it wasn't every last house behind this lawsuit, and I am all about being fair and giving punishment to the people that actually deserve it. For this though I was going to need to dig up some information. I hired a man that went into the neighborhood and HOA to dig up who was behind wanting to sue me. Then I hired him to look into their lives and see what dirt they were trying to keep covered up. I know that this might sound creepy, and I know I said the word destroy earlier, but don't worry, this guy wasn't like a hitman or anything. Anyway, I found out there were basically three main families that were pushing this lawsuit to try to get me bankrupt and out of my land. Each one with their own dirt and a personal revenge waiting for them. The first house, I found out the man living there with his new wife and stepkids had stopped paying child support to his ex-wife since he moved. My guess is he didn't leave a forwarding address, and I even found out this house was in the new girlfriend's name. A rich guy like him shouldn't get away with not sending money to take care of his kids. Of course, me as a concerned citizen had to find and anonymously send something to that ex-wife letting her know about where the man was now living. He won't be able to avoid doing that anymore and wasting the extra money on pointless things like lawsuits against me, for instance. The second family I looked into was one where the husband seemed to be a very big businessman. Worked for a huge company and had a ton of clients that would take him for lunches and golf games. The only thing that seemed a little odd was that digging into his job and what he made there seemed to add up to one number. What he was reporting to the government on his taxes though was a much lower income. So low in fact that it conveniently put him in a lower tax bracket than he should have been in. I called the IRS on this one and they seemed very interested to hear that someone who was an executive was listing his occupation and income at the level of someone who would just be starting out. To make a long story short, he ended up owing a lot of back taxes and money to the IRS to the point that he couldn't afford to live in the nice snobby neighborhood anymore after about 6 months. The final family though was my absolute favorite, and even though it was the first dirt I dug up, I decided to save it for my grand finale. So, despite both of the adults having no jobs on record and claiming zero income to the government, they were still living in this super nice area. Their official address actually led me on Google Maps to what is essentially a trailer park. They didn't go to work, but it was very easy to see what this couple was doing. They were the neighborhood drug dealers and providing the teenagers with pot and adults with cocaine to continue their high and fast lifestyle. This one I didn't even want to mess around with and called both the IRS about their fake address and that their bank account had a couple $100,000 in it despite pretending to be poor. I also called the police letting them know, and it didn't take long before their house was raided, and they were flat out arrested. Of course, they handled it like a Karen, and you could hear all the way on my farm screaming of what I would assume was her claiming to be framed. Obviously, with all of their dirt on display and their lives destroyed, the lawsuit magically got dropped. I paid my lawyer and private investigator for their work and continued to enjoy my life on the farm. Nobody in that town has any proof that I was the one to get revenge on these families moving into my area and trying to kick me out. I think they have a strong feeling though, because I haven't been bothered once since then. If you mess with a redneck that has money, you are going to find your entire life flipped and destroyed. The next story is titled, "My Pregnant Ex Keeps Trying to Move Into My Apartment." This is not my story. This is my friend's story that I'm posting for him because he doesn't have a Reddit and wants people to hear about this. Also, for convenience, I'm going to write this in first person POV because pronouns are hard to keep up with. Everything here is approved by my friend. So, I, 21 male, have an ex, Angelica, 20 female. Angelica and I had an on and off relationship since we were about 15 but got serious when COVID hit and I had to move back to my hometown. We got an apartment together and very soon after she started spending a lot of time with her cousin. Long story short, she's boning her cousin. We break up. We've been broken up 9 months at this point. For 7 of those months, her phone has been on my phone bill, and she owes me over $500. Fine. Whatever. I'll never see that $500 and she always makes excuses to pay me back. That's life, my own fault for letting her keep using me as a cash cow. She also took my car when we broke up and I let her because I was too afraid she would try to take my apartment too. Anyway, it's 9 months past our breakup. I get a message. "Hey, I'm pregnant. I'm on my way home from work," so I don't respond. That is 9 months past being my problem, it is not my baby. She messages me again. My boyfriend, the one she cheated on me with, and I have nowhere to stay. Still 9 months past my problem. Angelica has never worked a day in her life. She lives off the disability check from her boyfriend and spends it 99% on weed and fast food. She never paid rent and is documented to never pay rent. Anyway, she tells me, "My name is still on the lease, we're going to move in September." I tell her, "Your name is not on the lease, it was renewed last month and I took your name off." I'm sorry. She messages me calling me an asshole and saying she's moving in because she has nowhere for her baby and 3 dogs to stay. Mind you, my apartment is more like a studio and barely fits me, let alone 2 other people and 3 dogs. I tell her it's not happening, I'm moving out of town soon anyway, also come pick up her shit that she's left at my apartment for 9 months. She says no, and if I throw it away she's going to press charges. I tell her it doesn't matter because when I move I'm throwing it away. She later called my landlord and told him I was planning to move out. I got upset at this and told her I ran the numbers on the car, it's still in my name. Get the car out of my name now or I'm repossessing it, or she can leave me the hell alone. She started bawling on a call asking how I could do this to her and her unborn child, and I was condemning her and her child to be homeless. She also still has a gun in my name that I told her to give back or I'm calling the cops. I'm really considering repossessing the car since it was mine from the start and is still in my name. She doesn't deserve to get a free car handed to her, she needs to wake up. She keeps saying she needs a place to stay, I'm ruining her and her baby's life. It's literally my apartment, that she has never once paid rent on. I don't know how she thinks she's entitled to just live in my apartment with the guy she cheated on me with and 3 dogs. I hope the baby ends up okay. It's not its fault its mother is a spoiled brat, but I also hope being homeless and carless wakes her the duck up. Tiny update. My friend said his ex is coming to pick up her shit tomorrow and return the gun. If he gets shot I'll let you guys know, I guess. Update. Her and her boyfriend, fake cousin, came to his, my friend's, apartment, returned the gun and picked up her shit. Her boyfriend then proceeded to wave his own gun around and demand to be put back on the lease, not how that works. My friend called the cops, they booked it out of there before the cops arrived. I'm not sure about the rest. Sorry, edit for more clarification. Also, no response back from him, so I don't know at this point. Alright, final update. Phone is not on the phone bill, her stuff is out of his apartment, his gun is returned, dog is in his possession, still no car. He said it's not worth it at this point. My friend asked for no charges, so I doubt anything will happen. He said he's cutting her out of his life, no contact. I'm personally upset about the car, but nothing to do about it now. The next story is entitled Neighbor Wanna Steal My Grandmother's Time. My grandmother hires a gardener to take care of the house's yard. She pays him €20 an hour. He usually needs to work for 5 hours once a month to cut the weed, care for some bushes and trees, and things like that. He works very well. He is a bit expensive for my area, but he is well worth it. The neighbor notices the good work. While gardener was cutting some branches on a tree close to the fence, the neighbors got out of his house and asked the gardener could trim some bushes on the other side of the fence while he was at it. Gardener of course refused. It would take some time that he is billing to my grandmother, which he explained to neighbors. However, gardener would be happy to work for neighbor if he wanted. He even would reduce the price for both neighbor and grandmother if he can care for their yards the same day, since he could spread the cost of gas and such between the two. Neighbor refused completely, because it was way too expensive, and that for every he had done for my grandmother, he deserved a bit of help for the gardener. Gardener just told him to then talk with grandmother, and if grandmother agree, he would do it. Neighbor got a bit angry, said he shouldn't have to ask, anyway, because he was a good neighbor, and what's people does for good neighbors. Gardener ignored him from that and continue his work. He told my grandmother what happened, and how he should proceed next time. Grandmother told him to not change anything, and gave him a tip. Oh, and you know what neighbor did for my grandmother? He visited to make sure she was alright and if she didn't need anything once, just after my grandfather's death, while we were all there. And so, she surely wouldn't need anything at that time. They've been neighbors for 40 years. The next story is entitled Neighbor and Family Too. Another story reminded me of this. My family has owned a farm for over 150 years. Part of it has been let to return to a nice little woods. Well, about 20 or 30 years ago the neighboring farmer recontoured his field so that it drained in the northwest corner, directly onto our family land. The nicest little corner of the whole property with some really old trees. Back then my deadbeat uncle lived on the farm, and since he likes to have his boots licked he probably gave the neighbor permission to do this if he was asked. Not that my uncle had any authority to do so. So now that nice little corner has a gully in it 20 feet deep starting at the retaining wall the neighbor built. It has washed away 2 or 3 oaks that are 2.5 feet in diameter or larger and numerous other trees along its path until it gets to the stream that runs through the property, which of course ends up silted out every spring. The township says it has been this way too long to do anything about it. Top this off with the hunting on the property. My father cuts deadwood in the farm as well as invasive species. On one tromp through the woods Dad came upon a bait pile and blood. He tracked it to the neighbor's field. Dad is great friends with the DNR guys in our state. One phone call later and the DNR shows up at the farmer's house for illegally baiting turkeys, possibly out of season. There was snow. Now the farmer has a hobby of taxidermy, so he has 2 or 3 freezers full of animals to work on, animals they have hunted, general food and the like. He has to unpack every freezer and authenticate any animals that have been hunted and any that are not huntable but were obtained as roadkill, which you need a permit for as well. The farmer was slightly terrified. The DNR didn't find the turkey, but we have another source of info on what happened. My uncle. According to Uncle Dearest, recently back in town, the farmer's son was innocently attempting to get photos of turkeys over a bait pile, when this wounded turkey stumbles up at death's door. The farmer's son then takes his gun, there for protection I would guess against our vicious local squirrel population, but certainly not for hunting, and puts the poor gasping turkey out of its misery. Then the DNR show up at their door with false allegations. Uncle, who again has no right, would let these people hunt there, but apparently this was so upsetting to the farmer that he took it out on his grown son for almost getting him jailed. Not to be nitpicky, but the only way he might have gone to jail was if he had unauthenticated animals in his freezer. Why ever in the world would he be even the slightest bit nervous? But the visit had him sweating bullets, and now there hasn't been any sign of them on the property except the damn gully. The last story is entitled Neighbor Takes My Family's Bikes and Gives Them Away. A few days ago my apartment building has gone empty and we are the only family left. Our apartment building has 4 floors and a shared basement for storage. We have 2 other apartments on both sides of us. A few months ago a family moved into the building on our right. Their house was above my friend's, and every time I came over I could hear how hard they walk, and my friend tells me that it really pisses him off because they are always up at night and walking as hard as they can. The only times we get to see them is when they are out in the shared patio grilling or just letting the kids out. Every time they are out at the patio no one else is. My friends tell me that they want the patio to themselves and other rules like that, just claiming stuff, even though they have only been here for a week or 2. Back to the present, my friend moves, and almost the entire complex is empty, and this is when the family gets its chance. Our shared basement is kinda dirty, it has some boxes and broken bikes in it, pretty normal for a shared basement. We normally hold our bikes there so they are not blocking the sidewalk, and we also don't always lock our bikes up because we use them often enough. The mother notices that this basement, which she doesn't use, is kinda dirty and she wants it to be cleaned out. Instead of just cleaning it out herself or even noticing that some of these bikes are new, she decides to take pictures of them and send a message out on Twitter for our street asking if anyone wants a bike. I find this post and I run down to the basement, and guess what? All the bikes were gone. But not the broken ones, just our family's new bikes. I am freaking out. I rush outside and go to all of the houses asking for our bikes back, and the other neighbors were compliant and gave our bikes back, and we forgave them because it really wasn't their fault. Later we got all of our bikes back and I headed back home. I didn't want to start an argument because I can see why they would do it, but still, they probably wouldn't care anyway. Thank you for listening.